done a couple of these for FMVA. But this one is probably nearest and dearest to my heart because we're going to talk about an area of Colorado where multiple generations of my family have lived and worked in the mines. This opening shot, this is my mother's hometown. It's pronounced Ouray, Colorado, not Ouray, not Ouray, it's Ouray. It's called the Switzerland of America, and as you can see, the mountains and the snow look a lot like the Alps in Europe. It's a small town. Anybody who's ever driven through the $1 Million Highway in the San Juans had to go through Ouray to get there. You know how scenic it is. Okay, so moving on. We have a shot of, that's Yankee Boy Basin in the background there, the big three, and that will cover the Camp-Bird Mine in Ouray, the Sunnyside Mine in Silverton, and the Idarado Mine in Telluride. So moving on. Most of the photos in here done by my wife, Angela, like most of my presentations. I'm not much with the camera. So here's a shot. I think we may have covered this in a previous take, but the Colorado state flag is represented in its 4 colors by the state mineral of Colorado, Rhodochrosite, the state gemstone of Colorado, which is aquamarine from Mount Antero. The state rock of Colorado is Yule marble, which is most prominently featured at the Lincoln Memorial. And then in the center, obviously gold, which is the reason why most people came to Colorado in the 1860s anyway. Next slide. The state seal of Colorado has a hammer and a pick on it. Not too many states represent mining on their state seal, but the reason that Colorado has the borders drawn that the way it does is to keep all of those ore deposits within the state boundaries. The Colorado Mineral Belt, which starts up in Boulder County and goes all the way down almost to Cortez, you could basically follow diagonally inside the borders of the state. All right, so here's the mineral belt. You can see up in the top right all the way down to the bottom left, many counties, many ore bodies, but we're going to focus today specifically on Ouray, Silverton, and Telluride. There's your triangle. As the crow flies, none of these towns are very far from one another, but it's not necessarily a quick drive to get to any of them. Okay, next slide. We're going to start at the Camp-Bird Mine. Camp-Bird Mine was founded by Thomas Walsh in 1896, although C.W. McCall changed it to 1892 in order to make it rhyme in the lyrics to the song Camp-Bird Mine. The mine produced about 1.5 million troy ounces of gold and 4 million troy ounces of silver from 1896 all the way up until 1990. At the current prices, by the way, the Camp-Bird's production would be worth about 11.8 billion with a B dollars. Walsh sold the property for a mere 5.2 million in 1902, and his daughter Evelyn Walsh McLean actually purchased the Hope Diamond with the money that they made from selling the Camp-Bird. Thomas Walsh died in 1909, but his daughter went on to write several chapters in the book Father Struck It Rich about her dad and the Camp-Bird mine. Like I said, production lasted until 1990. The heyday of specimen mining was under the ownership of Federal Resources Corporation. But as of a few years ago, the Camp-Bird actually has a new owner called the Caldera Mineral Resources LLC. The most recent information I could find online said back in 2017, they had reached a negotiation with an EPA to do a cleanup of the site and start mining, but I can't find anything that says they actually began production. For those of you wondering, the mine actually gets its name from the gray jays known as camp robbers, which are prominent in the San Juans and would notoriously steal food from the miners' lunchboxes and any other scraps from the campsite. Okay, so our first photo here is an early shot of Camp-Bird Mill from 1920. If you look at the top edge of the photo, you can see snow fences up there. This is to stop the, it's hard to tell from this angle. We'll get a little further on here, but that's a very steep incline behind the mine there. And they would have avalanches every year that would destroy several buildings. So the snow fences kept everything from getting crushed. Okay, next slide. This is a shot 1903. So this is just after Walsh sold the mine, and this is in front of the main mine building. We've got nearly 100 people in here in their Sunday best, because this is and was a very respected profession back in the day, and it meant a lot to the miners to have a good outfit to not only represent themselves and the mine, but their town. You know, the identity of Ouray was tied to the Camperwood mine, and the faces of these individuals were seen by people all over Colorado, and they wanted to put on their best face to show what they represented. And the Camperwood was a prestigious place to work. It wasn't a small operation. It wasn't a lowly mine. It meant a lot to the locals to work there. Okay, next shot. So this is the aerial tram at the angle station at the Camperwood mine, ? So I found this image from images of the San Juans, on the San Juan, sorry. And they've attributed it to the Camperwood. I question it a bit because I can't figure out specifically the angle or the reason why this would be there, but I couldn't resist putting it in for the simple fact that you see a couple of guys in the cars. And clearly the photo has been staged. They wanted to get themselves in the photograph. They rode in those cars. But the one guy way up on the cables, who has no car underneath him, literally a daredevil holding on to the cables for dear life. He's a good 75 feet off the ground at that point, but I guess, you know, the photo lives on, so he did his job. All right, so this is a few decades later, right before World War II, color photo of the big red mill building, which no longer exists. You're looking directly northeast towards Ouray, straight down the hill there. Next shot is another image of the mill right there. That's the mill in all of its glory, one of the most iconic images of San Juan mining right there. Beautiful color image. Next shot. So this is a shot going down the main tunnel of the Camperwood, circa 1960. This is where all the ore came in and out of the mine. Next shot here. All right, so this is a photo that Angela took, my wife. This is what the Camperwood looked like the day after 4th of July in 2014, so 8 years ago. They were in the beginnings of reclamation and cleanup, the early stages. If you go to the next shot, you can see that's really the only physical structure left on the property. That's the caretaker's house. For any of you who are familiar with the area, this is the main building that would be on the what is that, the west end of the Camperwood property. Okay, next shot. So this is the image that was on the gate. This is what I mentioned before, Caldera Mineral Resources. They know that there's not only gold, but base metals left in the Camperwood. And, you know, if gold prices keep soaring the way they do, they'll be able to make money going underground, and you might even see some mineral specimens coming out. All right, next shot. So this is above the Camperwood, not far, only a couple minutes drive, but that is one of the most classic images from any road you'll drive on in the San Juans. That is the famous hanging rock above the road. It was carved out, but not blasted away. The rock is solid. There's nothing that would cause it to fall. But when you drive under there, you realize that there's an entire mountain just above your head. Okay, next shot. And speaking of treacherous trails in the San Juans, this is the Black Bear Trail, one of the steepest and narrowest in anywhere in southwestern Colorado. This is going up to the Grizzly Bear Mine, which is, you know, again, not that far from the Camperwood. They're not next to each other, but, you know, they're still both in Ouray County. But this was, for many years, the only means of transportation through these steep inclines on all of these mountainsides here. It was a narrow, one person, one mule wide trail, no wagons. Most of the people would go up either on horseback or mules, or they would walk. And it wasn't easy to carve this stuff out either. You can see just above the mule's head where the rock has been carved away enough for them to just get, about 30 inches worth of width to go up the mountain and back. Okay, next shot. So if you ever go up towards the campground in the summer along the road, the groundwater from the melting snow forms or comes out of the rocks, and the plant life forms these natural hanging baskets that cling to the rocks, but their root systems absorb a large percentage of the water. And Are we good? Is that better, Alex? Okay. Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah, the hanging baskets. Really interesting phenomenon with this plant life. This is getting close to timberline, just nearly at timberline. Not a lot of vegetation, but these hardy little plants, they spend a good 9 months of the year either freezing or under snow, and they peak out, in the mid to late summer. It's a real sight to see. All right, next shot. Okay, so the camper, the mineralization there is a polymetallic replacement deposit. The main ore body is the campered vein, and there's a few other ore bodies and 3 other veins. It's a tabular fissure vein replacement body. The workings include extensive underground openings, over 4.5 miles of tunnels, and it goes as deep as 250 meters underground. My personal connection to the mine is my maternal grandfather. My mom's father worked as a miner there from 1972 until 1980, except for a couple of years off in between when he and my dad owned and operated the Sweet Home Mine. And my maternal grandmother, my mom's mother, worked as a secretary at the camper in the late 1950s. Okay, so this first piece is go back one. There we go. These are the famous feather calcites that come from the camper, narrow tapered scalenohedrons. This piece is about 3.5 inches. Individual crystals are, 3/4 of an inch. Doubly terminated. These are not manganese bearing. These are stark white crystals. We'll get into the pink ones later. This is a very good representative example of what they look like. The next shot, however, is a very different looking style with this almost radial burst, a spray of very thin scalenohedral calcites. Bit of fluorite on there, small colorless cubes of fluorite, and then smaller aggregates of another carbonate, probably dolomite. I don't think there's anything else that could be that kind of pearly tan color from there. This is one of my favorite pieces from the camper because it's a very rare style for the calcite. Next shot, we have a large predominant. Now this one is pink, a slightly pinkish color, manganese bearing calcite crystal that's, about 1.5 inches with thin prismatic colorless gem quality crystals of quartz and a little bit of golden metallic pyrite. This is a signature piece. I believe this piece was photographed in the MR for the Colorado issue, but I'd have to dig it up and see. A couple of the pieces are represented with their photos from the MR. Okay, next shot. So your best examples of good crystallized sulfides in a lot of cases came out of the camper. This is chalcopyrite or sphalerite out of the replacement ore body, and these large brassy twinned chalcopyrite crystals are iconic for the locality. There really is nowhere else in Colorado, a little bit from the Bandora, but the best ones, in my opinion, came out of the camper with that stark contrast of the sphalerite, sometimes a little bit of galena in there, but the multiple sulfide species on one specimen is signature for this locality. All right, next shot we have, Old photo from the MR, that's what it looked like in the MR. That's what it looks like in present day. Black and white photography did not do a lot of favors for sulfide specimens. All right, next shot we have probably my favorite chalcopyrite ever found at this mine because of these classic, almost trilling looking twins where you have the large predominant crystal and then the secondary one flaring off the side, creating that three-way T shape. Hard to photograph because it's a hard piece to put at the right angle, but we wanted to show multiple twins. There's a little bit of sphalerite off to the side, and then again, a little bit of dolomite up in the right corner there. A large miniature, but a gorgeous representation of this hard to find material. Next shot. Oh yeah, a photo from the MR. Again, no definition, really hard to tell what it looks like in the magazine. So much better in color. All right, next shot we have a single isolated twin, again, showing that trilling or T shape. I love the fact that this piece sits so prominently. A little bit of quartz and calcite, again, with the sphalerite. All the stuff out of the replacement ore body is unmistakable for what it is. Came out, you know, most of the stuff you see that's in people's collections was mined either, you know, late 50s up until the mid 80s. Not a ton from the early 80s to mid 80s, but you know, 50s, 60s, 70s till the end of the 70s, early 80s. All right, next shot. Oh, yeah, different angle here. So this was I want to say Colorado 1 issue of the MR, but it could have been Colorado 2. Anyway, my dad's old photo, our updated photo. Now, this is a rare combination. There's only a handful of these in existence. Calcite on galena or galena with calcite, however you want to phrase it. Again, large miniature specimen, the same classic style of the scalenohedrons on the big galena cube, modified octahedral faces on the corner. I've only seen probably 4 or 5 of these in my life, and this, as far as I know, is the best one. I don't know if there's a better one of this combination. All right, next shot. Old photo again. I should really update this. Sorry, Alex, I should have probably done it a different way so we're not looking at the same piece multiple times. Okay, so gypsum is rare in the San Juans for the simple fact that the majority of it was dissolved away, and some of it wasn't even gypsum. Some of it was anhydrite, and we'll get into that later. But well-formed gypsum crystals are exceedingly rare from any San Juan locality. This, to me, is the best one from the Campered. I've never seen anything better than this. Transparent, really hard to show in the photo how transparent it is, but it is water clear through and through. I think we'll have a better shot in the next frame, next slide here. Yeah, so you can see actually my dad's old photo represents it better because you can see the water clear transparency of this one. This piece was collected in 1974 out of the 1100 level of the mine. No, it's okay. So the signature stuff out of the replacement ore body was the epidote and other metamorphic minerals. This piece, while not much to look at, there's only one place in Colorado where this kind of stuff is found. It had the epidote with the sphalerite or other sulfides, light pistachio green microcrystals. There's also piedmontite there, and I think thulite as well. Different members of the epidote group. Like I said, not the flashiest thing in the world, but you don't see this combination almost anywhere else, to have sphalerite and epidote together like this. So this piece was actually mined by my grandfather, Dave Bergman. And it's really interesting. Again, unique combination here. The large fluorite cube sitting at the top with little needles of pistachio green epidote sitting on black sphalerite and little calcite balls sprinkled about. I know none of these are rare minerals, but when is the last time you saw fluorite with epidote on sphalerite? Just, there's only one place that I know of that has this combo. All right, next shot. The majority of the sphalerite from the Campered is black and opaque, but there were a few select pockets that produced unquestionably the finest gem quality green crystals from any mine in Colorado. Better than Creed, better than the Big Four mine. This particular specimen really hard to illustrate in a photograph how transparent and green it is. It's more green in person, and the large predominant crystal in the front there is like glass, absolutely transparent, water clear. These are a rich emerald green. We're getting more of kind of a brownish yellow color here. Nothing better than this that I've ever seen from any mine in Colorado. And of course, we'll focus on a little bit of gold here. And believe it or not, for as much gold came out of this mine, and like I said, it was 1.5 million troy ounces. You see almost nothing on the market from the Camper mine. Almost every bit of it was melted down. This is an interesting combo because the gang mineral on here is Kootenai. X-ray confirmed. It was a small percentage of the carbonates through here were Kootenai. If we go to the next shot, Alex, we got a close up and you can see delicate, almost leaf-like, but fully crystallized micro gold. My grandfather said for a long time when he was working there, every blast, you would expose the vein and this gold would just be poking right out at you. It was always visible with the naked eye. It was never micro material. It was almost always crystallized and rich, easy to find. You can see this gold has a lighter, almost whitish color, more silver than copper content in there, giving it the lighter color. Beautiful stuff. All right, moving on. We now go to the Idarado. This mine, it lies beneath the ridge, the high ridge on Red Mountain between Telluride and Ouray. It actually sits, the mine sits in both Ouray and San Miguel counties. It has over 80 miles of interconnected drifts, crosscuts, and tunnels, and incorporates a bunch of other properties into the complex, including the Ajax Smuggler, the Tomboy, the Liberty Bell, the Alamo, the Virginius, the Pandora, the Flat, the Japan, the Flora, the Cross, the Ansbro, the Handicap, the Barstow, Montana Argentine, and Black Bear veins. I don't have that memorized. I'm reading that off a piece of paper. There was over 100,000 feet of drifts and 37,000 feet of crosscuts accessible, mostly on the Argentina Black Bear veins and the Ajax section of the Smuggler vein. This is the Smuggler vein for the Idarado, not the Smuggler vein from Aspen, as Alex and I have cleared up. The mine, Idarado, unique sound, actually gets its name from the Idaho and Colorado Mining Company that purchased all the individual properties that made up the complex. You combine Idaho and Colorado, you get Idarado. All right, so in the 1880s, there was a big mining boom on Red Mountain Pass, which actually didn't last that long, only until the mid-1890s. This is a shot of the Marshall Basin above Telluride. This includes the mine dumps, the buildings, and the tents near Timberline. This was early 1880s. The very preliminary mining took place here. If you look on mid-left center, that's where the Tomboy and the Smuggler and the Union would exist. This was probably within the first 2 or 3 months of mining around Telluride. So moving on to the next shot here. This is an interesting photograph, rare to see underground mining. I mean, first of all, you have to think about the technology at the time and how difficult it was to get a camera underground and actually get a photo. But even though these guys look like they're in motion, they probably had to stand still for the better part of a minute in order to capture this shot. It is remarkable to me simply because I don't know anywhere else where a photograph of something like this exists for Colorado mining in the 1800s. There may be another shot, but this is the only one I've ever seen. Okay, so this is the old mill there at the Idarado. This building still there last time I drove through Telluride. This mill was not the first mill to process ore from the Idarado. Originally, the only way to move ore, this for anyone familiar with the geography of the area, there's no straight line to drive from Ouray to Telluride. You got to go around the mountain. And to haul the ore from the top of Red Mountain Pass, which is in Ouray County, you had to go 60 miles on the highway to the Pandora Mill in Telluride, which is in San Miguel County. And the cost and the expense of hauling the ore was a nightmare. They ended up shutting down the Idarado about the turn of the 20th century. Then, in 1943, the war effort required the Idarado mine to reopen. They actually leased the mine to the U.S. government along the Black Bear, and they accessed the mine through, or accessed the mill through the newly created Treasury Tunnel. They actually drove 7 miles, no, it's actually like 6 miles from the top of Red Mountain Pass straight over to Telluride through the mountain. The Treasury Tunnel was the only way they could get the ore to the mill in time. It saved thousands of hours, millions of dollars. They needed the base metals out of the Idarado for the war effort, for the specific purpose of building planes and ships and tanks for World War II. If it wasn't for the Treasury Tunnel, they would have never been able to get the ore for processing fast enough. My great-grandfather actually worked in the Idarado complex for over 30 years as a contract miner. He actually ran the powder train at the end of his career. And both of my great-grandparents moved to Ouray specifically to work at this mine. My great-grandfather was there for the completion of the Treasury Tunnel. He worked there for 2 years until it was finished. In 1954, the original Idarado mill was destroyed, and they had to use the Pandora mill in Telluride, which is what we're looking at here. My mom's father, my maternal grandfather, the same one that worked in the Campbird, worked as a diesel mechanic for about 8 years at the Idarado. And my maternal grandmother was a secretary at the Idarado for nearly 10 years. Her last year there was 1978. Okay, next shot. This is a fairly modern photograph of what it looks like at the top of Red Mountain Pass. And essentially, if you go down the valley the way you're looking, that's the way towards Ouray. And if you go the opposite direction, that's the way towards Silverton. Last time I was up there, there's actually less buildings. There really isn't much. And none of this is actual mine buildings. This is storage. I believe that the counties keep their snow plows and everything up here on top of the pass. But none of this is actual mine buildings. Okay, next shot. A classic representation of what are the most well-known pink manganese-bearing calcites from Colorado. The Idarado produced the best and the biggest of these crystals. This one is a modified ROM sitting on top of quartz. Piece is about 3 inches wide. The crystal itself is a little over an inch. This particular habit is rare. I know there was 1 or 2 pockets that produced this specific style. Most of what you'll see out of the Idarado is the elongated tapered scalenohedrons, but I wanted to show this as a representation of these unique and rare light pink calcites. The next shot, we have the more classic style. These are a bit more robust crystals. They're a bit fatter. Typically, you'll see these all over the place. There's so many of these that came out over the years. My grandpa said that he personally probably collected 400 or 500 pounds of these calcites, and they found their way into rock shops all over the country and old collections. Almost everybody had one of these pink calcites from the Idarado in it. Next shot. This is this piece is pictured in the MR. It's really unusual. The yellow color is a little bit of iron oxide staining on there, but these feathery multi-crystal scalenohedral groups of calcite are what most people, I think, are familiar with from this locality. You can go to the next shot. You can see the black and white. There it is. These are very rare, believe it or not. I think this one was preserved specifically in my dad's collection because it still had the iron on there. Most people would remove the iron because they were pretty pink crystals underneath. Next shot, we have an image of Quartz, sphalerite, galena, a little bit of siderite on there. Classic stuff for the Idarado. You know, there's a lot of quartz, a lot of sulfides, a lot of carbonates in there. The combination is beautiful. You know, you could see this kind of stuff represented in ore bodies, whether it's, you know, Bulgaria or Peru, similar stuff. These deposits are ubiquitous around the world. Classic stuff from the Idarado. Next shot. The Idarado had a little bit of quartz with slight amethystine coloring. If you look at the center of this quartz crystal, there's a faint purple color. I've never seen a crystal that was completely purple. The majority of them are white or colorless with a little bit of amethyst in the center, but this is one of the best examples that I've ever seen from this mine, especially for the size. All right, next shot. Beautiful Ticino habit quartz here with a little bit of sphalerite at the base. The upper portion of the crystal is absolutely transparent, water clear, razor sharp, highly lustrous, almost alpine quality. Really, really good for what it is. Next shot. Pyrite, although abundant inside the mine, you didn't find a ton of good crystallized examples. This one is one of the better that I've seen. Especially rare to find it on or with calcite like this. It's not quartz, it's calcite. There was one section of the mine, my mom told me that her grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, said that there was one area in the early 1950s where they found these, and he said he never remembered seeing them again. All right, next shot. So the chalcopyrites from the Idarado are easily distinguishable from the campered pieces because there's almost never any twins. The campered chalcopyrites are almost always twinned, and very few of them are twinned from the Idarado. This is out of the same kind of replacement ore body as in the campered, and so you've got your chalcopyrite with quartz, a little bit of bornite, those dark specks sprinkled all over there, bornite, and then you have epidote, a light pistachio green color, and they're sitting on quartz. But what makes this distinct, and if you go to the next photo, Alex, the back of the piece is a hollow cast where the quartz replaced anhydrite. Anhydrite originally there, the quartz came in over the top, warm solution came in and dissolved the anhydrite away. So go back previously, Alex. So there it is from the front, flip it over to the other side. There it is, that hollow cast in the back. You didn't see a lot of casts from the campered, only a handful from the Idarado. We'll see more well-pronounced casts from the Sunnyside at the end here. All right, next photo, Alex. One of my favorite pieces from anywhere in the San Juans. Gentle baby pink sparkling calcite draped almost like a halo around the top of this stout quartz crystal. Has a beautiful 360 presentation on it, crystallized all the way around, no damage. This is one of my favorite pieces, about 2.5 inches. I've never seen another one that was as showy and as aesthetic as this one. I know it's just quartz and calcite, but it's really pretty to see in person. All right, next shot. So here's some of the Piemontite we're talking about with Adularia and calcite. This is out of the same replacement ore body. Piemontite's part of the epidote group. Is it still a species? I can't remember. I don't know. Somebody can look it up and let me know. And the little sparkling crystals underneath are Adularia. So this is, yeah, and there's your photo from the MR. This would have been probably the Colorado 2 issue. But this stuff was rare. There was only 2 pockets of these, and this, to my understanding, was the best cabinet-sized example of this unusual material. All right, next photo. Oh, this is out of the same pocket here. The single scalenohedron of calcite with a little bit of that light reddish-brown Piedmontite at the bottom. Okay, next shot. Here we go. Beautiful gold from the Idarado. Same thing as the camper, that lighter whitish yellow color, a little bit of silver content in there. The same thing, flat, platy looking crystals. highly, highly lustrous, razor sharp metallic. Again, field of view is small here, but this is excellent crystallization for gold. Next shot, you can see, oh, I'm sorry. I guess that was the only shot of it. It's okay. That's the only one that was in there. The better gold photos are coming here from the Sunnyside. Okay, so this is the last of our trio. This locality, the Sunnyside Mine, which is not the American Tunnel mine. I have a particular bone to pick about this, but if you ever see anything labeled from the American Tunnel, it's almost certainly not from the American Tunnel. It came out of the Sunnyside Mine. The American Tunnel was the same as the Treasury Tunnel. It was only there as a means of moving ore. There was no actual mining that took place. It was simply a tunnel. But because it was such a famous endeavor, the term American Tunnel was synonymous with the Sunnyside Mine. And even to the locals, they didn't even call the place the Sunnyside Mine. They called it the Standard Mine, but we'll get to that in a minute. If you see anything that says American Tunnel, it almost certainly wasn't mined from there. It came out of the Sunnyside and traveled through the American Tunnel on its way out the front into your collection. So the Sunnyside, like the Idarado complex, it was an accumulation of several individual mines, which included the Gold King, the Washington Mine, the Belle Creole, the Gold Prince, the Brenneman Mine, the Mogul Mine, the Little Mary, and a few others. It's about half a mile east of Bonita Peak, 2 miles northeast of Gladstone, sits on patented private land. Gold, lead, manganese, silver, zinc, copper mine. The majority of the mining took place over 3 large fissure vein fillings. The Sunnyside became, over the years, Colorado's largest operating underground gold mine. And like I said, the lead, copper, zinc, and silver helped bring in the money over the years. This locality is credited with a production of more than 7 million tons of ore over the lifespan of 118 years. The best visible free gold in the vein or specimen form was always at the crossings of the veins where the large gold blowouts would occur. So you have essentially, like an X shape where one vein's like this and the other vein's like this. And in the center of the two of them, you get these incredibly dense concentrations of gold. Not just eye visible gold, but it looked like there was almost solid gold. There was very little of the vein there. So the Sunnyside was discovered by George Howard and R.J. McNutt in 1873, and then Judge John Terry bought the mine from the two in 1900. Several versions of improvements and expansions and the construction of a new selective flotation system made the Sunnyside one of the most important and sophisticated large underground mines in Colorado. In 1927, the Sunnyside was the first Colorado mine to produce 1,000 tons of ore per day, and they had a payroll of more than 500 people working there. In 1927, the mine is called the Standard Mine by the locals because it was owned by Standard Metals Mining Corporation, and they leased and operated the mine from 1959 until 1985. So anybody born and raised in the San Juans in that 25-year span calls it the Standard Mine. Okay, so next shot here. This is a shot from the early 1900s. There's the Sunnyside buildings, Lake Emma. This is at an elevation of 12,240 feet, well above timberline. So you're looking, if you go down the gulch, that's the way towards Eureka. The portal is at the left center, which is called B level. But, from that point, B level was nothing. They actually got up to C, D, E, F, and G levels in the mine. All right, next shot. This is the area below and above the mine. You can see, well, this is not actually the entire part of the mine. This is the lower part of the complex. This is where the American Tunnel would lead out. Up above was where the actual mining was taking place. Okay, next shot. So this is after the mine closed down in the late 1970s. We'll get to that in a minute. They had to do rehabilitation. The mine did get back up and running. Next shot, Alex, we'll have. Okay, so um, this is a photo that we took when we were up there. This is the last building and has nothing to do with mining. This actually was a groundwater testing building in there. Go to the next shot. You can see this is Terry Tunnel entrance to the Sunnyside. This is the old entrance before the American Tunnel was created. I believe this has been closed over now. You can't even go in there, and you wouldn't even know where it was. The friend of mine told me that the entire thing's been reclaimed. You wouldn't even know there was anything there. Okay, next shot. This is the old mill. The remnants of the old one. The mill's not there. This is just the foundation, essentially, of the old mill. This is concrete embankments on the hillside. Go to the next shot. I think we have more of a close up. Yeah, there we go. This is the photo from 2014. Looks pretty much like the old photo there. The physical structure is completely gone, but the foundation remains. All right, next photo. Okay, so in 1978, Lake Emma, which was sitting directly on top of the Sunnyside Mine, completely collapsed. The bottom of the lake drained and rushed into the Sunnyside, flooding the entire mine all the way from top to bottom. Those of you who are familiar with Newton's second law, force equals rate of change of motion, and velocity times mass per time gives you an educated guess of what would be about 400,000 pounds of force shot through the mine over the course of a couple hours. Large machines inside the mine were mangled and shredded to pieces like they were made out of tinfoil. The miners who saw what happened showed up and said that nothing was salvageable. Everything was shredded to pieces and ejected out of the front like they were shot out of a cannon. The fortune, good fortune in all of this, was that the mine collapsed on a Sunday and nobody was working there on that day. The mine was completely empty. Not a single life was lost. Now, if you want to put on your conspiracy theory hat, there's a lot of people that believe that they knew the mine was about to get flooded. There was no way to stop the collapse of Lake Emma. And the last people in the mine on Saturday essentially ensured that the mine would collapse when nobody was in there. So this was 1978. The cleanup took 2 years to complete before the mine was back in operation. And unfortunately, by 1985, it was forced into bankruptcy and they closed down. A short time later, Echo Bay Mines bought the lease and they put it back into production in 1988, but it was short-lived. My maternal great-grandfather, along with my stepdad, both worked at the Sunnyside before and after the disaster with Lake Emma. Those of you who have been to Tucson or Denver mineral shows have probably at least seen my stepdad. His name is Reese, walking around. He was one of the guys in charge of the cleanup and rehabilitation at the Sunnyside, 1978, 1979, 1980. Took a while. He said the crazy thing was when they were doing the rehab, the bottom of Lake Emma, when they were trying to see exactly where the hole was, where the water drained through, there was a bunch of exposed gold sitting right there in the bottom of the lake, which is essentially the vein on the top of G level there was inside of Lake Emma. They were mining directly into the bottom of the lake. And they said that the water was pouring in so fast at the very end that they were standing in waist deep water while they were mining. They were still mining up until, like I said, the day before the mine collapsed. But there was so much rich gold in there, they tried to get every last bit of it out before Lake Emma drained into the rest of the mine. Um, all right, so we're going to get into mineral photos here. Next shot. Okay. So the best known specimens from this locality are obviously the beautiful pink, sometimes red rhodochrosite and the green fluorites. It's interesting. There's a lot of rhodo in this mine, and for a long time, the Sunnyside was the premier rhodochrosite locality in Colorado. Long before the Sweet Home, for a couple decades before the Sweet Home really had much to brag about, 50s, 60s, into the 70s. And when my dad mined the Sweet Home, yeah, they found some stuff, but there was infinitely more Sunnyside rhodo on the market. The funny thing is that manganese in the Sunnyside was problematic to the milling process, and it actually caused a higher loss of gold ore recovery over the years. This particular specimen is one of our iconic pieces in our collection. My dad used it in advertising. I think they put it on a Christmas card when I was a kid. Classic combo: green octahedral fluorite, light pink rhodochrosite, and a little bit of white quartz. Yeah, so the reason there's two images here is because my wife and I went back and forth. We couldn't agree. She liked one image or one angle better. I liked the other one better. I won't tell you who picked which one, but you guys can decide for yourself. By the way, this particular combo of the green fluorite, the pink rhodo, and the white quartz, to have the three together is the most desirable combo from this locality. All right, next shot. Oh, there it was in the MR. Here it is, relatively present day. Okay, there we go. So this is fluorite, not with rhodochrosite, but with a bit of light pink kutnohorite, just like the campbird. This piece has an interesting story. So it's hard to illustrate in the photo. This is a very modified complex crystal here, predominantly octahedral, dodecahedral, and cubic faces. But the crystal is water clear. It is completely transparent. You can see straight through the top to the matrix underneath. Hard to illustrate in a photo. Years ago, my dad picked this piece up from a good friend of his who lived down in Durango, Colorado. And they were in the garage and they were looking at some old Sunnyside pieces. And this piece was sitting next to the rock saw in the shop. And my dad picked it up and said, "Oh, what's this? This is nice." And his friend said, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna cut that piece open and I'm gonna have a stone cut for my wife." And my dad took one look at it and said, "No way. I don't care how much you want. I'm not gonna let you destroy this crystal." I'm paraphrasing here because I don't want to repeat the colorful language that my dad used at the time, but basically told his friend, "Over my dead body, you're not going to saw this thing up. This is too nice of a specimen to end up in a piece of jewelry," and had the added bonus of the rare kutnohorite association. Okay, next photo. One of my favorite pieces from the mine. So this is a twin, cross twin, essentially, dodecahedral faces, forming the cross shape here on the back of light pink colored rhodo. This is the only one I've ever seen like it from the locality. And if anybody can tell me what specific twin habit or law this is, I'd love to know because I can't find it illustrated in any other book. All right, go ahead. This piece, unfortunately, just doesn't look as good in photos as it does in person. The green hue in these fluorites is as rich and vibrant as any green you'll see from virtually any other fluorite in the world. Alex has been to the house to see this piece in person. He's held it in his hands, and I think he would agree that you won't find a better green fluorite from any locality, not just Colorado, not the United States, maybe all of North America. It has the added bonus of the little pink rhodochrosite associations sitting on the quartz matrix. This piece is also photographed and pictured in the MR, and you can see how terrible the photo is. The representation, it's just one of those pieces that it has to be seen in person. The color reproduction, by the way, in the MR photo, that background was snow white when it was photographed, but the green bled into the background of the slide and the color reproduction. And yeah, it has that kind of awful gray tone to it. Doesn't look anything like that in person. All right, next photo. Again, more chalcopyrite, a lot of copper in the form of chalcopyrite in all three mines. But this one sitting on beautiful baby pink rhodochrosite. The crystals, the chalcopyrite crystals on this piece are mirror bright, incredibly reflective, razor sharp, highly lustrous, beautiful material. Rare combo. You don't see chalcopyrite with rhodo from almost anywhere. Next photo. This is again another rare combination for this mine specifically. There was only one pocket of these little pink rhodorums sprinkled on a complex cubooctahedral galena crystal. The piece is over 2 inches, so that's already a really big single galena for any mine in Colorado. Has the nice touch of the pink rhodos on there. Okay, next shot. This is one of the most iconic pieces from the Sunnyside Mine. Razor sharp gypsum crystals, water clear, sitting on this gentle pink rhodochrosite. There's only a couple places in the world where rhodo and gypsum are found together. Kopnik, Romania comes to mind. I've seen it from Santa Eulalia in Mexico, but this one to me is the best quality. And you can see the old photo in the MR illustrating that amazing transparent quality of the gypsum and the beautiful rhodochrosite underneath. The thing that makes this piece so good, and I've seen several of these over the years, the majority of the terminations on the gypsum crystals are either rounded or completely broken, bashed in, and they always look, incomplete. This one is distinct, sharp, amazingly well-formed crystals and virtually no damage. All right, next shot. Little fluorite octahedrons on a manganese-bearing calcite. We call this one the pineapple. This is rare for the Sunnyside. Good calcites, you almost never see them. What really gives it away is the fact that there's that light greenish color to the fluorite crystals, and the fact that they're octahedrons. You don't see octahedral fluorite from the Campbird or the Idarado. It's almost always Sunnyside. All right, next shot. I know, I'm pretty sure Alex saw this piece when he came to the house. I think he was in love with this one because it has little white snowballs of anhydrite sitting on a single ROM of rhodochrosite. Beautiful thumbnail specimen. This association is rare to say the least. I don't know if you see anhydrite on rhodo from anywhere else in the world. These have been confirmed, by the way. These are definitely anhydrite. If you go to the next shot, you can see one other piece of anhydrite on rhodo, but there's actually a layer of very pale green gemmate fluorite in between. Obviously, it looks like a snow cone or an ice cream cone. There was one good pocket of these, and I never saw any others. Yeah, and there it is from the other side. You can't ask for better aesthetics. Beautiful little specimen. These are small. None of them are big. They're thumbnails. But the combination, the association, and the form just makes them so unique and really desirable. All right, next shot. So here we go. Here's some gold. The Sunnyside actually did produce good crystallized material, but it also produced wires, and you almost never see wires from any other mine in the San Juans. This one stands out as a beautiful combination of both of them. Obviously not big, smaller stuff, but crystals and a wire sitting on top of the same specimen, rare from anywhere in Colorado. Next shot, we see pseudo wires. I mean, they're wire-esque, sitting amongst kutnohorite with a little bit of dark gray hessite in there. You can see the beige colored kutnohorite in the back, obviously quartz, but there is, or was, so many pockets that they opened. This is essentially the vein, folks. This is what it looked like the majority of the time. Large sections of visible gold just poking out all over the place. Incredibly rich stuff. All right, next shot. Same piece, different angle. Again, wire-esque looking gold here with crystallized areas. The hessite, the kutnohorite, it's all a great combination. there are a few places in Colorado where you have hessite or petzite, things like that, but not typically directly with the gold like this. Next shot we see, this is gold with hubnerite. You can see all those bladed crystals of dark red hubnerite in the back, and then almost colorless fluorite surrounding it. I don't know if there may be another place in Colorado where they've been reported together, but I've never physically seen a piece of gold with hubnerite like this from anywhere else. Next shot. Okay, so these are microcrystals. This is pyrox mangite, a manganese silicate. For many decades, these tiny little crystals were referred to as rhodonite, but XRD analysis proved it's all much rarer pyrox mangite. It's the high pressure, low temperature dimorph of rhodonite. The reason that they were called rhodonite is because there was a geologist at the Sunnyside Mine who was originally from New Jersey, and he was intimately familiar with rhodonite from Franklin. So he was the one responsible for making the first identification, and because of his experience with rhodonite from Franklin, he thought all of it was rhodonite. There are some other manganese silicates, just like at Franklin, found at the Sunnyside. It's the only place in Colorado you'll find them. They are alleghanite, which is part of the olivine group, fridolite, which is part of the perovskite group, and telluride, which is part of the humite group. You won't find those minerals anywhere else. Okay, so go to the next shot, Alex. Here, you see these gentle, and these are tiny crystals. Most of them are 1 or 2 millimeters. Gentle pink pyrox mangite. Hard to find in good crystallized examples from this mine. The majority of what you'll see there is large, lumpy, massive pink samples. The crystals are exceedingly rare. Next shot is arguably, oh no, okay, so we've got one more here. Pocket crystals, you know, in a tiny little bug. But the next shot is arguably the best example. There it is. 6 millimeters, which is really big, but a perfect fishtail twin. I know on a worldwide scale, you say, oh, there's pyrox mangite from other places, but a single twin like this from Colorado is as good as it gets. I've never seen anything close to this from the Sunnyside. Next shot, we have a cool association of helvine with pyrox mangite. You can see the light pink, massive, uncrystallized pyrox mangite in the background on quartz, but these bright canary yellow helvine crystals that are, again, about 1 millimeter. Again, another manganese silicate, so it makes sense. But you don't see many of these. There is 1 or 2 isolated finds of this micromaterial, but very distinctive. I know that they have the same thing in Peru. I've seen it from, I believe, Romania as well. But these are incredibly hard to find from Colorado. All right, next shot. So here's a great sample of all these manganese silicates together on one specimen. Your alleghanite, your telluride, your fridolite, and there's the sulfides as well, which is how you can distinguish it from anywhere else, because you can say, oh, well, that's from Franklin. Well, they don't have sphalerite and pyrite and fibergite and chalcopyrite and galena together. You know, for those counting, you've got 9 confirmed species on the same specimen here. That's not terribly common for any mineral specimen from Colorado. All right, next shot. Beautiful little sphalerite, spinel twin sphalerite with tiny rhodocrystals on quartz from Colorado. This is rare for the Sunnyside. You didn't see good crystallized sphalerites from this locality. This is one of the best examples that I've seen. All right, next shot. Lovely rhodochrosite, soft pink colored rums. Classic material. You'll see this a lot from this locality on quartz, a little bit of sulfide sprinkled on the quartz. Next piece is a really interesting example of rhodo on sphalerite. You don't see many of these either. You know, the rhodo on the galena is rare. Rhodo on sphalerite is just a little less rare. Beautiful thumbnail, again, textbook example of the carbonate and the sulfide together, but really colorful and showy. All right, next shot. These are what was called the candy rhodochrosites, larger, more compressed rhombs than you're typically used to seeing from here. You know, those crystals are close to an inch, you know, more than 2 centimeters across. They formed in floater plates, essentially. They were found loose in a large mud ball. There was only a handful of these. My grandfather wasn't there when they found him, but he knew about him. It was a large clay mud ball in one of the pockets, and they washed it off with a hose inside the mine. And these beautiful, fully crystallized plates just kept popping out of the mud every few seconds. All right, next shot. Now, this piece is a bit darker in person. The red is more intense. And I say red because it's not really pink. It does have more of a rose red color to it. What makes this interesting is most of the time at the Sunnyside, the rhodochrosites had a secondary overgrowth of usually lighter pink, almost white on the surface. This one did not have that overgrowth. You can see the sharp, distinct, well-formed rhombic faces on here and that darker color. Believe it or not, you don't see it because of the overgrowth, but most of the larger crystals from the Sunnyside are almost as red as anything from the Sweet Home in the center. But that overgrowth always takes away from the strong color. Go to the next shot here, Alex. You can see how light pink this is. This is that secondary overgrowth, and it takes away all the intensity of the color. Unfortunately, I don't think we have a photo to illustrate it. This is a big rhomb, by the way. That's a 2-inch crystal sitting on top of this piece with the smaller ones overgrowing it. The lighter pink color takes away from the true red hue inside. Go to the next slide. Okay, so that was the end of it. I didn't know if I thought there might be one more in there. I think I might have showed this in the gold talk, but for those of you who didn't get to see it, this is a shot of gold with rhodochrosite. There's not many places in the world you'll see that. This is from the Brooklyn mine in San Juan County, not too far away from the Sunnyside. You have these small, highly compressed rosettes of rhombic rhodochrosite with leaf gold on Ruby Jack's Fluorite. Go to the next shot, Alex. There we go. And you can see the 3 of them intergrown, the leaf gold, the rhodo on this Fluorite. There are some, I think it's in the next shot, you'll see it. It's very hard to tell what came first, if the rhodo was in there first or if the gold was in there first, because in some instances, the gold is on top of the rhodo, and in other places, the rhodo is on top of the gold. Yeah, here's a great example of it with the 2 of them intertwined like this. I don't know of any other locality in Colorado, or maybe the entire US, maybe all of North America, that has gold and rhodo intergrown like this. There was one single pocket from the Brooklyn mine where these were found. The majority of the pieces do not exist today. They were melted down. There's only a handful that I know of. We were fortunate enough to have 2 of them in our collection, and we only had one for a long time. The other was in my grandpa's collection, and then he turned 80 years old and said he stopped caring about his collection, so gave us everything to take care of for him. But you'll never see these anywhere. There was, like I said, only a handful of them survived. The majority of them were melted down, and it's really a shame because it's one of the most special discoveries in anywhere in the San Juans. Okay, next slide, we have, go past this, Alex. I think I have a selection of books. Yeah, so if you want to learn more about minerals of San Juans, obviously the MR, the 1114 update, the Minerals of Colorado is great. Gloria Stabler did the San Juan Triangle of Colorado. That piece on the cover, by the way, that was in our collection. We sold that piece to Steve Smale. It was also pictured in the MR. That one has an intense red color when you backlight it. One more, Alex, one more slide. If anybody's interested in reading about Evelyn Walsh and the Campbird mine, she wrote a book called Father Struck It Rich. Is there nothing there, Alex? Oh, I thought I put it in at the end. Okay, don't worry about it. Evelyn Walsh wrote a book called Father Struck It Rich. You could probably find it on Amazon. It was published originally in, oh geez, I think in early 20th century. Anyway, it's a great memoir of her life as a daughter of a very poor miner to becoming literally one of the wealthiest people in the United States. They were, they purchased the Hope Diamond. They became socialites, and it was your true rags to riches story. But highly recommend it. Not a terribly long book, very interesting from her perspective, the life that she lived. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions? Sorry, that went a little longer than I anticipated.